Now, Andrew, I've just noticed on Scott Morrison's Facebook page, his statement, he says, I'm just reading this to you as I've noted it on Facebook a moment ago. I note the Solicitor General's advice released publicly today regarding the matter of appointments to administer departments while I served as Prime Minister. I note that the Solicitor General found that the appointments were valid and that while there is some historical precedent for the publication in the Gazette of appointments to administer particular departments of state under Section 64, there is no consistent practice in that regard. To respond to the Solicitor General's advice, I refer to my statement last week where I set out that at no time, other than the consideration of the PEP 11 matter from first principles, did I exercise powers established under these lawful authorities. This means that I did not fulfil the function of an acting or co-minister, as has been alleged. Ministers continued to exercise their full authorities without any interference with my full trust and confidence. The authorities at issue were put in place as an emergency power to be used only in extreme circumstances due to incapacity or in the national interest. These authorities were only sought with respect to where ministers could act unilaterally without reference to or interference by Cabinet or the Prime Minister. The suggestion that ministers could be instructed or directed on these matters is false. Given the serious crises facing Australia, I considered it prudent to put these authorities in place should they be necessary as a safeguard. The authorities granted were respected in the fact that they were not exercised, as the circumstances for which they were provided did not materialise. In short, the authorities were not misused. From January 2020 to the time of the election, the government I led dealt with multiple crises. During that time, thousands of decisions were made, some precautionary, some active. My focus was on saving lives, livelihoods and protecting Australians in one of the most challenging periods we had known since the Second World War. In the extraordinary circumstances I was contending with, decisions were made and then I kept moving forward. We did not dwell on such decisions. He goes on to say, notwithstanding the current criticisms of these past decisions, it's important not to lose sight of the result that was achieved. And he talks about various successes. And then he says, in summary, the authorities established were valid. Number two, there was no consistent process for publication of such authorities. Three, no powers were exercised under these authorities except in the case of the PEP 11 decision or misused. Four, ministers exercised their portfolio authorities fully with my utmost confidence. Five, as Prime Minister, I did not act as Minister. Six, on the PEP 11 matter, this was done lawfully from first principles. And seven, Australia's performance through the pandemic was one of the strongest in the developed world. Andrew Clennell, the former Prime Minister, remains unrepentant.
Well, he hasn't got an excuse, has he? He hasn't got an answer back to the Solicitor General's advice. It's the same message he was saying at the press conference last week, sadly for Scott Morrison. You can't even find anyone hardly on his side who thinks he acted in a justifiable manner. He didn't even tell his own Treasurer or Finance Minister that he was doing it. Why was he doing it? He still doesn't explain it. Why was he doing it in 2021 when the crisis was in 2020 with Home Affairs and Treasury? I mean, at least he's got a fair point with the spirited defence of his policy actions, etc. But I'm afraid on this one, Kieran, he was asked for an apology, obviously, by Anthony Albanese. I think he'd be better off just saying I stuffed up.